Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 review. The first foldable phone under $1,000. I love the Galaxy Z Flip 3. There are drawbacks, battery and camera primarily, though durability is in there too, but Samsung has absolutely nailed the aesthetic and functionality of this form factor. If you don't get the appeal of a foldable flip phone, then this may not win you over, but if you're tempted, then there's really no need to wait any longer. This is the real deal, and it won't get much better. Let's get this out of the way. The Galaxy Z Flip 3 is not a perfect phone, because there's no such thing. But it's a phone that absolutely nails what it sets out to: provide a premium feeling folding phone that looks fantastic, feels great to use, and doesn't cost the earth. The perfect version of this phone would probably have slightly better cameras, but then it would cost a few hundred more. Or maybe it would have longer battery life, but in that case it wouldn't be half so compact. Samsung made the right compromises, and the result is not only a foldable that can stand toe-to-toe with its smartphone rivals, but is comfortably the most exciting phone this year. Last year's Galaxy Z Flip and Z Flip 5G looked pretty fantastic, so it was a slight surprise that Samsung went back to the drawing board for the series' third phone. Luckily, my skepticism was unwarranted, as the company found space for several key improvements. The broad shape and size of the phone hasn't changed much, but the aesthetics have. Gone are the mirrored, metallic finishes of the first gen, replaced by more muted, two-tone designs. I've been testing the phone in cream, but you can also grab it in black, purple, or dark green. If none of those float your boat, then Samsung has added the option to create a bespoke edition version of the phone for yourself, though it does cost £50/$50/€60 extra, and can only be ordered from Samsung's own site. There are two displays to consider with the Flip 3. Let's start with the main one. The 6.7-inch folding screen is a Full HD Plus AMOLED panel, the same as before, but this year has a welcome bump up to a 120Hz refresh rate, which nets you smoother and more fluid animations. If you haven't tried a folding phone before, you might be surprised by how solid the Flip 3's display actually feels, and by how little you tend to notice the central crease. Still, it is there. It's not so visible head-on, but at angles or against light backgrounds you will see the crease pretty easily. You'll also feel it any time you scroll over that central line, which is probably the bigger annoyance of the two. When you first get the phone, it feels like it matters. Within a few hours of use, it really doesn't. Don't overthink it. The first-gen Galaxy Z Flip used what was at the time a slightly older chipset, in what was presumably a cost-cutting measure. Impressively, despite actually lowering the price this time, Samsung hasn't tried to get away with that approach again. Instead, you'll find this year's flagship Snapdragon 888 inside, the same chip used in the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and the S21 phones. Together with 8GB of RAM that nets you fast performance across the board, capable of rivaling just about anything other than top-spec gaming phones. Storage is also solid, with a choice between 128GB or 256GB of fast UFS 3.1 storage, though with no microSD slot, you won't be able to expand this if you ever run out. The Snapdragon 888 also delivers 5G support. There's sadly only space for one physical SIM card, but the phone can support a physical SIM and an eSIM simultaneously. Beyond all that, you'll get Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.1, and NFC. There's face unlock driven by the single selfie camera, and a fingerprint unlock using a side-mounted scanner, not an under-display option. It's all been rosy so far, but now it's time to get into what are unequivocally the phone's weak points, though I certainly wouldn't consider them crippling. First up, the Z Flip 3 packs a piddly little 3,300 mAh battery, far smaller than most mainstream Android phones these days. With light to typical usage, it will last a full day, but heavier users will struggle. Taking it on holiday with me, I found that a day of Google Maps and photo taking was too much for it, with the battery often dying around 7 p.m. That's with 120 Hz and the cover screen's always-on display enabled though. so it would be possible to squeeze some extra life out of the phone if you were willing to sacrifice either of those, and remember that travel does involve particularly heavy usage. If the battery life is objectively subpar, the camera quality on the Z Flip 3 is a more subjective concern. Samsung has decided to reuse last year's camera specs, meaning you get a 12MP main lens and 12MP ultra-wide, along with a 10MP punch-hole selfie lens. These cameras were good but not great last year, and to be honest the same holds true now. Simple shots for social media will come out well, especially in good lighting, but performance will suffer in dimmer conditions and many will miss the extra options afforded by a telephoto lens. Most of the time the photos out of any of the lenses here will hold their own, even against top tones, especially to the untrained eye. Advances in smartphone photography are now focused on edge cases, night photography, challenging lighting, and extreme zoom, and it's only here that the Flip 3 can't compete. Does that matter? Probably not to most, and I suspect the Flip 3 will find a sizable audience willing to make that compromise for the unique design. And if that's not you, then Samsung has the S21 series ready and waiting. The Galaxy Z Flip 3 launched running Android 11, with Samsung's One UI 3.1 on top. Samsung has committed to providing 3 years of Android version updates to the phone, which should cover the upcoming Android 12, but also versions 13 and 14, along with a 4th year of security patches. That's one of the best Android update promises you'll find, only really outpaced by Google itself. As mentioned above, you also have the option of paying an extra £50/$50/€60 for one of the bespoke edition variants, which are only available for the 256GB storage option, and at the time of writing these are only available in the US, UK, Canada, South Korea, France, Germany, and Australia. I won't pretend that £949/$999 is cheap for a phone, but compared to the £1,399/$1,449 starting price of the Z Flip 5G, it's an absolute steal.